What is something that you wear in the summer is sentimental and fundamentally based on mathematics? You spend a lot of time sitting in class, learning about mathematical equations and mathematical concepts, none of which seem applicable to your life unless you're trying to become the next Einstein. If you look at your wrist, you might be wearing a friendship bracelet you received last summer. Surprise! These bracelets are summer attire, sentimental, and fundamentally based in mathematics. As somebody who's been tying friendship bracelets for 10 years, I'm excited to present to you Geometry, Level 2. Friendship bracelet math is generally speaking split into two categories, the first being creative math and the second logistical math. We'll cover both of these. Starting with creative math. Creative math is math involved in the designing of a pattern. You can go online and you can find thousands of pre-existing patterns. However, any math you do in relation to those pre-existing patterns is going to be logistical math. I'm talking about the math that you use to create one of those patterns that you might find in the database. Let's go over some of the different math you may encounter while trying to create one of these patterns. First off, you're going to encounter issues with bracelet width. You're going to need to determine how wide you want your bracelet to be, but then also determine how many strings you need in order to make it that wide. There are a lot of calculations involved in that. Next is the pattern. I wasn't kidding when I mentioned that this was Geometry Level 2. You're going to have to take everything you know about symmetry and shapes and apply it to creating a pattern, which in and of itself is geometrical in nature. Next, odd and even strings. You're going to have to figure out if the pattern you're trying to create is going to require an odd number of strings or an even number of strings. Next is permutation. For those of you who thought you had finally escaped pre-calculus, it's coming back to bite you in your summer art class. In contrast, logistical math deals more with scaling, altering pre-existing patterns, and various other general setup. They are calculations for the setup of the bracelet as opposed to the creation of the pattern. Here are some questions you might run into when you are pursuing something regarding logistical math. Am I upscaling this? And by how much? Am I doubling it, quadrupling it? Maybe I'm taking a fraction of the size and creating that. What design elements are going to change, and by how much? How am I going to compensate for that within the rest of the pattern? Do I need to add or subtract strings in order to get a proper permutation and get the results I want? How long do I need to make these strings so that my bracelet ends up going all the way around my wrist instead of becoming a 2-inch bookmark in my next speech textbook? In conclusion, you can see how math is fully involved within the process of making something that seems so completely absent of mathematics. And you can also see that the kinds of math that are involved are also drastically different, one being more creative in nature, foundationally building the pattern itself, while the other half of the mathematics being logistical in nature, taking a pre-existing pattern and setting it up so that you can create the bracelet that you have envisioned in your mind. The math we learn in our everyday classes is surprisingly applicable in our everyday lives. You don't have to be Einstein to make a friendship bracelet.